Hey, Barbara, welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, why don't we start off? Just tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Okay, so I am a mom of three kids. I have two boys, one girl. I'm actually a single mom, and I'm just kind of reinventing myself after a 15-year hiatus from the workforce. After ending my marriage, decided I kind of wanted to just get back out there and see what I could do. I had, gone through cancer treatments when I was 42 and got to the other side and said, if I get to the other side of this, I'm going to really go for it. No holding back, no fear. Being faced with my own mortality gave me access to another gear, a
Hmm.
fifth gear of like, you press the clutch and go forward because life has a beginning and an end. And where you're meeting me today is kind of in the launch of my reinvention. I'm now doing work on television. You can find me on the Today Show next week for the 4th of July segment, but you can always see me on Inside Edition, Good Day New York, whoever, wherever, in Cleveland and California, whoever will have me. So, and this is my second act, something I've always wanted to do, and that's the nuts and bolts of it for sure.
Cool. So why don't you talk to us about reinventing yourself and what kind of that whole process has looked like?
Yeah, I just always have these things percolating in the back of my head through my teenage years, my 20s, my 30s, and I always just wanted to be in. I love the idea of journalism and television, and just I always wanted to be on the kind of front lines of just that industry, but I really lacked the confidence. I always, I thought that was for the pretty people, and I thought that was for someone else. It just seemed so elusive, so exclusive, so, unobtainable. So I never went for it. Fortunately, age gives you a little bit more access to the truths of life. And I really have learned through experience and time that anything that you're willing to put your mind to, you can have access to. You just have to be willing to do the work. You have to humble yourself to be a good student. And I really took those philosophies, instead of just listening to them, I decided to put them in play. And I will say that getting a stage 3 cancer diagnosis in my early 40s was a great impetus for shifting that gear, to really saying, what, why not me? And, all of a sudden letting go of beliefs that were no longer serving me. And that was a big transformation of like, I think I just always thought I was not worthy. And
Hmm.
I just got to a point where I was like, where did those beliefs come from and why do I still have them? And now it's time to swipe left to those, to those beliefs, because they weren't serving me. And I also had three kids, that I was like, what? I never want them to believe, ever say that to themselves. So, that's where, you know, that's where I'm at,
So
rebuilding.
what
Mhm.
were so I'm not worthy. What were some of your other beliefs that you had that were holding you back? And then what are some of the steps that you took to really get over them? Because I know a lot of us have those limiting beliefs that are keeping us playing big and they keep us small. So how can we get over those?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I find that a lot of people have those beliefs. I was talking to a friend and she's like, I can't believe I see you all over television now and I see what you're doing, but I know you never did that before. I know you didn't do that when you were younger. She's like, why didn't you do it earlier? You seem to really enjoy it. And I shared with her, I just never thought I was good enough and I was
Mm.
pretty enough or witty. I don't know what I thought, but I knew, I can't really go into the minutia of enough, but it was like, I just thought I wasn't worthy. And
Mm.
I shared that with her. She goes, I say that. She goes, I think that about myself all the time. And
Mm.
I couldn't believe it because looking at her, she's like adorable and funny and has a great sense of humor and very well educated, great family. I'm like, like checks all the boxes that how could you say you're not worthy?
Yeah.
So I just think it's like such a common unfortunate. And then I was listening to another podcast this week, and it was so good. I'm like at a loss for his name, but Gwyneth Paltrow was interviewing him. He's married to Kristen Bell, Dax Shepard.
Okay.
And he said, he goes, it's almost like the human condition is to have low self-esteem. And
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, well, I thought that was indigenous to me. And he's saying it's like the human condition, and it almost kind of aligns all of us, that we all have that. And the reason why I kind of dive deep into that, because it's not, you're not alone in the fear of your worthiness in the universe. And I think just what really transformed me is I just became kind of fearless.
Hmm.
I became kind of like, well, yeah, what if I make an ass out of myself on TV? What, am I going to die? I'm not going to die, you know? Because you think like you're so afraid of cancer, and then you get it and you're like, well, that sucked. But then you get through it and you're like, well, what else can I survive? Can I survive a flub on TV? Can I survive trying and exploring? And, I think I can. I think if I survived cancer, I think I can survive, putting myself out there in other lanes where, the worst that could happen is I make mistakes, but those are our biggest lessons. And I do think, I went through something really traumatic with my marriage, and, I got up the next day, the sun came up, and the world keeps turning. And just kind of, I don't know, there's just so many things mixed in there with this kind of, you hit rock bottom, whether it's through cancer or failing marriage, and you get to the bottom and you're like, you know what, enough of this, being in the fetal position on the bathroom floor isn't how I see my life playing out.
Hmm.
So it's a really good question, but it is definitely a mindset. It's a shift in your mind, and it's really hard, but it's really worth the practice, so I think it just started in my mind of like, you know what, I'm tired of those old voices. Those voices held me back from being, or kept me in a marriage that wasn't serving me, and it made me, act in a marriage like I wasn't worthy. And there's so much power in that. I don't know. It's a mindset. It's a choice. I decided I am worthy, and I'm going to go for it. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Goodbye, old voices that are no longer serving me. Goodbye. You've been real. It's been awesome. Go F yourself. I got things to do in this lifetime, and the universe is asking me to do it, so I think that's really important.
I think it's important to know that pretty much everyone has those same beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of doing it anyways. And I like how you're like, what's the worst that can happen by doing this? Like, am I going to die by going on TV and like making a
Yeah.
mistake? Like,
So would I make a mistake? But what if I don't? And what, you just, it's the things you regret or the things you don't try. And I don't know, just being confronted with your own mortality and looking at the gifts and your purpose in your life. It's like, all right, Barb, come on, get to it. I did tell in my cancer journey, I said to the universe, I'm like, get me out of this, and I'll live a life of service and giving back, just get me out of this chemo. So that's kind of where you're meeting me now. I'm like, oh, I did. I made a vow to the universe. I'm like, you just get me out of this, and I'll go big. I'll go bold. I won't disappoint you. I'll come through, like almost like let's make a deal. I made a deal with the universe, so maybe we all need to make a deal with the universe.
I'm going to go big. Cool. Well, how do you find like the grit and determination that it really takes to live out your purpose?
Yeah, I love that question, because I just recently have kind of really thinking in my mind about like fourth quarter grit, and what I mean by fourth quarter grit is like motivation and inspiration are fleeting. Like, we want to get in shape. We want to lose weight. We want to gain muscle. We want to learn this. We want to graduate with that. We all have those moments and those really powerful drivers that get us to sign up for something and to start something.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between JV and varsity and finishers is that fourth quarter grit, when you know what, you can't find motivation in a quote, you can't find motivation under your bed, you can't find no inspiration, no quote, no person, no picture, no mood board is getting you out of bed. You're like, I don't want to show up. And that's when discipline needs to take over. It's no longer about the emotional connection to your goal. It's now about grit. And I have to say, for me personally, I think that I'm a competitive person, and I'm sometimes just like just show up, or I'll like lie to myself. Sometimes you just gotta lie. You gotta like just show up, and like I'll do this. Like if let's say, like, let's use the analogy of working out. Like I want to get in shape, and then you're like all excited in the beginning, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to. I don't want to do the class. I don't want. So the way I get to myself is I'm like, just sit on the bike, just get on the Peloton and listen to her music. Like listen to the music. Just Barbara, you just get on the bike. You just 5 minutes, listen to music. And it's almost like I have to kind of really just retrain my brain of like, you have to show up. And I'm really big on sometimes show up. You're not always going to be your best self, but just show up. So, that grit, and what gives me grit is just, I want to finish strong. I want to finish something I start. But it is tough. That fourth quarter, man, that'll knock you down. It's like in parenting, they talk about fourth quarter parenting at the end of the school year. We're throwing like carrots between two pieces of bread.
Especially the homeschooling that just happened.
Oh, that was
the fourth quarter homeschooling. Oh my gosh, that was
it's crazy. But yeah, grit is a discipline. That's what grit is. Grit is discipline. When motivation, inspiration have taken off, because motivation and inspiration, those are sprinters. Those aren't marathoners. Those, the grit is the marathon. So grit is a choice, and you got to decide if you've got it or you don't have it.
What would you say to someone who maybe they made that investment in themselves to sign up for a program or something like that, and like halfway through they're fizzling out?
Yeah.
What would you say to them to help them finish strong and actually finish what they start,
Right.
Instead of trying to look for a way out?
I think that we have to understand that we all have like 5 or 6 gears. And, when we come in strong in the beginning, like we've got adrenaline, and the gas tank is full, and we're like, the oil is fresh, like everything's fresh. You're right in the 5th gear, and you're like, Wah! And we have to recognize that sometimes we just need to gear down, and it's okay, but don't stop. And it's okay to have, you don't feel like going the 10-mile run or the 3-mile run or showing up for the full class. I don't know. Just find another gear, but don't turn off the engine, and know that it's okay sometimes to be a little bit in the neutral position. That's not failing. That's just shifting gears, because your body and the universe and your life is telling you you cannot ride the clutch, and you cannot stay in 5th gear at all times, or 6th gear, whatever kind of Maserati you're driving in. So that's super important, because there isn't a person that drives in that high gear at all times. We just don't. But the perception that all of us are in that gear, because so that's what you see on social media, and that's what you see on the videos, and that's what you see on, that's what Oprah talks about in the interviews. They're like, yeah. And I'm going to tell you, the truth is, when you peel back that curtain and you peel back that highlight reel, you're going to see that there's days that just you're in a lower gear, but you show up. So I think that's just, to me, it's like so important to understand that where we're all aligned is that none of us are, we're not machines, we're human beings. But gear down, don't turn off the engine.
I think that's really important. That's something I always try to show my audience, is that I'm a real human and I'm authentic. And today I showed up for a podcast. I don't have makeup on, but at least I worked out and I got a shower in, and I have a 3-month-old baby. So like, that's huge. I was able to do that before this interview.
You showered. That's it. You went.
I showered.
Yeah.
Like, it's never going to be perfect. And I hear her squealing. My husband's with her. But it's just a matter of showing up and not.
It is. And do not compare your back of the house to other people's highlight reels.
Yep.
It is. It's very detrimental. It's very sabotaging. But just be okay to take a gear, take it in a different gear, but
and
just show up.
Yeah. And also knowing, like, if you're at a different stage of life, it's going to look different too. And so like for me, like my morning routine has not happened consistently since the baby was born, because I'm like, I just need to sleep.
And you know something? So I have 3 kids and I'm like, I don't envy you. I mean, I don't. I like a 3-month-old is like not, that wasn't my sport. I have to tell you, you're working 7 times as hard as me. You're working, there's just nothing I can't express to you. The amount, your world is so labor intensive right now. Now it's delicious and magical and every day is like baby kisses and hugs and all that. But you're like your workload. I have 3 kids. I have 3
Yeah.
kids. Your workload is 3 times the size. I mean, your baby can't do anything for themselves.
Yeah, I
You know,
know.
my daughter just went over to the supermarket and got herself breakfast, and she's, you know, I'm like, my boys are working, you know. So yeah, there's an evolution in time, and things do come back, and nothing stays the same. So yeah, you got to be able to shift gears and find where you're going to maximize your engine at every given turn. Such a good,
For
I think,
sure.
like a sports car. I'm
I love
NASCAR.
it. So you mentioned failing. I want to know, what are some of your failures? How would you describe failure, and how have those failures helped you to succeed?
What's the acronym for failure? First attempt at learning or something? Uh, a failure, first attempt. There's something in there. I'm forgetting what it is, but it's really good. It's like, of course you're going to fail. Like kids, they're learning how to walk. Every time they try to learn how to walk, they fall down, they get back up, they get back up, they get back up. So, you know, I can't really look at anything and say that I have failed at it because every stepping stone has moved me into where I maybe am supposed to be. And I've never like
Mhm.
reflected on something. I'm like, oh, that was a failure. I mean, even my marriage, I don't call that marriage just because I ended in divorce. I don't know that, you know, I wonder if I label that failure. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I just gave me 3 kids. I think it's a net positive.
Mhm.
I think the divorce process is horrible. But you know, it's moving in the right direction. And I think we're also, what are we so really afraid of, you know?
Mhm.
What is there, you know, the unknown? Well, you know, I think it's just moving the feet forward. I put a quote up on my Instagram yesterday that was so good, and it was just about, it's not about how fast you go, it's that you're moving forward.
Mhm.
So I can't, you know, I would be, you know, if somebody's asking what your biggest failures are, I would be hard pressed to say I don't know. I don't feel I've made mistakes. You know, like I wasn't prepared when I went on a show. Oh, you know, like stupid stuff. Like Jenna asked me once what kind of cheese was in my cheese wheel. And I was like, oh, I don't know what's in that cheese wheel. Because it was like, just to me, it was like I'm more like food, entertaining decor. And I was like, yeah, Jenna, I don't know. And the producer was like, how do you not know the cheese? And I was like, I don't know. So is that a failure, or is that, you know what? I will learn the damn cheese. Jenna, I know that you like queso, and you know, like, I don't know. That's just failures. Failures are first attempt at trying, and I will look up that acronym of what it says to stand for after we talk.
I think what you're saying is so important for people to understand, because a lot of times we might label something as a failure when in reality it's just a stepping stone to something bigger and greater. So
Yes, and
someone
I
asked
remember
me,
the acronym. It's first attempt in learning. First attempt in learning.
there
That's
you
the
go.
okay, to fail. Okay, keep going. You were going to say something.
Yeah, well, someone asked me, like, what are some of the failures and mistakes that I had? And I did a whole podcast on it. I was like, I had to think really hard because I never even thought of any of these things as failures, because I
Yeah,
just thought, I was like, oh, that's a nice lesson that I learned, you
yeah.
know? I never thought any of them as failures. So I think that's a huge lesson, is just
Mhm.
reframing how you see failure and not internalizing it and just being like,
Yeah.
oh, I learned something today.
Yeah. And you know, something I think people are afraid to, you know, be embarrassed. And I'm like, you know, I've
Who
done things
cares?
that are truly embarrassing, but you know, when you learn, you're like, nobody really cares. Like, and what,
No.
you know, the people that care, don't mind. The people that matter don't mind. And the people that mind don't matter.
Yeah.
Dr. Dr. Seuss right there.
Love
Quote of the
Dr.
day.
Seuss.
Yeah. People that matter don't mind, and people that mind don't matter. Done. There you go.
I think we think that people care about what we're doing or how we look a lot more than they really do when they're like
Yeah,
in their own
they're
head.
all concerned. We're all
Yeah,
care.
they're in
You
their
just
own
care for
land or
yourself.
whatever. Just focus on
Yeah,
you and
yeah.
do you.
Do you? It's your life. Yes.
For sure. What's one of the best books that you've read?
Oh my God. I'm really into memoirs. And I'm reading Educated right now by Tara Westover.
Mhm.
And it's just a story how she grew up in, she wasn't even educated. Like her parents just lived off of the land and they were religious zealots and kind of kept off the grid. And then obviously she's done very well for herself because she wrote a book. And so I'm really into memoirs and reading about people's journeys. So, I've read Michael Orr's book. Do you remember The Blind Side?
Yeah.
Yeah, with
Sandra
Sandra Bullock.
Bullock. Yep.
Yes.
Hmm.
The crazy part is it's not the best written book, but I loved his messages in it. And what happened was they did The Blind Side, the Tuohy's wrote the book or something like that, and then they did the movie. And he was kind of frustrated because he didn't feel like his story was kind of Hollywood and he didn't like it. So he decided he was going to write his own book. And his story in and of itself is so powerful. But the biggest takeaway that I took from it, because I also read like Etched in Sand was another good book, another memoir, but these common threads is these people that go through major adversity and then do are very successful. The thing that he said that tied every single memoir together of somebody that had come from a difficult situation and done well was he goes, my mother loved me. And his mother struggled with addiction and, they were constantly homeless and it was really difficult. He lived in the projects, but he goes, she just battled a disease of addiction, but I knew I was loved. And because I knew I was loved, I knew I was worthy of doing great things in the world. So as much as he really does attribute the Tuohys to giving him access to a better life, he really wanted that one message really conveyed that, yes, my mother struggled with addiction, but I was loved. And it was that love that gave me the understanding that I was worthy of great life.
Hmm.
And so when you ask me about great books, I just seem to always go to that book. And listen, he's not going to be up for a Nobel, not a Nobel. What's the Pulitzer when you write a good book? The good book star. He's not going to get it, but yeah, I loved it. Well, I loved Unbroken. That was another. Oh God, that was a good one. Unbroken, the book. I never saw the movie. Okay, those are my books. Unbroken.
Good ones. Very good
Mm-hmm.
ones. Cool.
Read memoirs.
What does it mean to you to make an impact?
I think when I use some of the things I've been through to help others, growing up with a brother with special needs has given me just great access to humanity and the importance of looking out for the most vulnerable members of society. And I'm really grateful for that. So for me, that's my purpose, I think, in my life. I understand the importance of speaking for those who can't speak for themselves, because I've been given a front row seat to that importance in the world, because that's been my experience. And when I help people and I share my story of being diagnosed at 42 with stage 3 colon cancer, and I share that story and I'm able to help others or encourage others to get screened and recognize the symptoms, that's where I feel like my experiences can give an impact. But with those two things, I use those two examples. The biggest impact that I hope to make through my platforms and my voice is that we all have great purpose and we all can serve a way to help others and have an impact. But the way we do that is often through channeling our own experiences to align us with humanity, to help others. My personal thing is I grew up with a brother with special needs. I've been through colon cancer. So by using those two really transformative experiences to help others, that's how I can make an impact. But really the major one is telling others, like, you are gifted with great purpose. We all are gifted with great purpose. You just need to identify what that is. And sometimes it's not wrapped up under the Christmas tree. It's oftentimes wrapped up in some of the most challenging experiences you've been through.
Mm-hmm.
And your experience can sometimes be, the real path and the real help to help others. So to me, that's where the impact lies, is serving others through my own experience.
I love that. Where can we connect with you?
So you can find me at barbara.majeski.com, Barbara Majeski on Instagram, and I am now on TikTok.
Ooh.
I had no idea, but I launched TikTok, and my first video had 3 million views.
Wow.
So it really shocked me, but turns out that's a great medium for me sharing some of the kooky stuff I do. So yeah, Barbara Majeski, follow me on my journey, and yeah, that's me.
Barbara, you're amazing. Thank you so much for sharing just everything with us. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate this. Thank you.